Welcome to another episode of Women Series where we capture developments and stories that impact women. On today's episode, we'll be bringing you updates on Nigerian entrepreneur Nneka Ede, who has become the first African woman to own a European sports club. The launch of a new initiative for women-owned ventures in green energy by the Africa Women Innovation and Entrepreneurship Forum, Nigerian B2B e-commerce startup TradeDepot raise of $10 million in a pre-Series B equity round, co-led by Partech, International Finance Corporation, Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, and MSA Capital, and WIMBIZ Communique on women in politics. First, let's begin with the update that Nneka Ede, a Nigerian business entrepreneur who has become the first African woman to own a European football club after purchasing Lusitano Ginásio Club, a Portuguese third division side, for an undisclosed amount. Mrs. Nneka Ede has secured 100% ownership of the 108-year-old club, which last played in the Portuguese top flight division in the 1950s. Speaking on the developments after becoming the official owner of the club, Ede said the football club acquisition will help foster a greater relationship between both countries and expressed her overwhelming excitement to start a new chapter with the club. In her own words, emphasizing the existence of a very deep and long-term sporting relationship between Nigeria and Portugal, she stated, "I am excited about this opportunity and I hope that this new chapter will deepen the already great sporting relations between Nigeria and Portugal and continue with the rich history of Lusitano Club and provide a pathway for young talent to develop and shine through." On the other hand, the club released a statement confirming that following a process of negotiations that lasted for months, they reached an agreement with the extreme sports enthusiast Nigerian entrepreneur Nneka Ede, who is going to share a path with the club in the days to come. A statement from the club reads, "After months of negotiations with different entities, an agreement has been reached with Mrs. Nneka Ede, a sports enthusiast and entrepreneur from Nigeria, a country filled with people as passionate and fiery about football as us, and which incidentally share the same green and white in their flags, towards the transfer of the ownership of the SAD to the latter that will help us in our mission to take Lusitano to the next level." The club, which has a long and rich history spanning over a century, has Abraham Adelaja, a Nigerian forward, in its team. Lusitano FC reached their pinnacle in the 1950s when the club competed for 14 consecutive seasons in the first division. They still hold a position among the 30 clubs in Portugal, with more participation at Tier 1 level in the country. And Ede has become the second Nigerian to own a Portuguese club after the Nigerian businessman Kunle Sonami purchased a club back in 2015. In another development, the Africa Women Innovation and Entrepreneurship Forum has launched a new initiative, Enterprise Development for Women-Owned Ventures in Green Energy, which will support 70 women involved in renewable and green energy production in Malawi and Nigeria. Funded by the African Women's Development Fund, the 12-month program offers two components to be implemented in two phases, one after the other. The first is the startup incubator, which will see 30 women in each country, 60 in total, supported in designing, refining, and launching their renewable and green energy business ideas. The second, which is the accelerator, will offer 10 established renewable and green energy women-owned ventures, 5 from each country, entrepreneurial training and preparation for investment readiness, as well as the opportunity to access venture finance. Applications are now open for the startup incubator aspect of the program, which is for individuals or teams from Malawi and Nigeria who have an idea for renewable and green energy business solutions to one of the key social and environmental challenges. The program is aimed at helping women turn their renewable and green energy enterprise idea into a product or service that customers want to buy, and the winning individuals or teams will receive training and support on turning their ideas into reality. Startup Incubator offers the participants and selected companies incubator models, including pitch training, mentorship support, expert guidance, and tailored support to make their business ideas a reality, and networking and peer learning opportunity with like-minded entrepreneurs. The best pitches will receive an opportunity to pitch their business idea at the AWIEF annual conference in December, and applications are ongoing until August 15th, with the program kicking off in September. The Nigerian B2B e-commerce startup TradeDepot has raised $10 million in a pre-series B equity round co-led by Partech, International Finance Corporation, Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, and MSA Capital. The new investment will enable TradeDepot to continue connecting international brands with small businesses in Nigeria, expand into other African cities, launch a suite of financial products and credit facilities aimed at supporting its retailers. According to comments by Onyekachi Izukane, the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of the startup, on securing the new investment, he said TradeDepot is excited to strengthen the team and welcome on board incredible strategic investors and partners as they double down on the mission to digitize and simplify retail distribution for the continent. Africa's offline retail market is estimated at $1 trillion, and this new investment allows us to capture an even greater segment of that market, he said. Also, with a predominantly female customer base, TradeDepot will be offering mentorship and opportunities to connect its customer base with domestic and global markets, aiding them to expand their businesses. Hannah Nguyen, the program manager speaking on behalf of IFC as implementing partner of BFI, expressed the importance of empowering African female small business owners, saying women play a pivotal role in driving economies across Africa, but lack of access to capital, limited market linkages, cultural norms, and other challenges often prevent them from achieving the success they want. WIFI financing will incentivize TradeDepot to build stronger women-led small and medium enterprises, retail and distributor networks, which will support them to become drivers of economic growth in their communities. The secured $10 million is an addition to the $3 million that was raised from Series A equity led by Partech in 2018. Founded in 2016, TradeDepot is a Nigerian B2B e-commerce startup that utilizes an end-to-end distribution platform that aims to connect the world's top consumer goods companies directly to retailers in Africa. Since launching, it has created a network of more than 40,000 micro retailers in Nigeria, worked with leading distributors and manufacturers including Unilever, and recorded considerable growth, activating a new store every 3 minutes and receiving a retailer order every 4 seconds on average. Earlier on this month, the Women in Management, Business and Public Service WIMBIZ held its annual Women in Politics webinar themed The Nigerian Constitution and Elections, A Right to Win, with over 300 participants in attendance. The Women in Politics aims at increasing the representation of women in public office through influence and advocacy, with the objective of growing female representation from 4% to 30%, in line with the 1995 Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. The session, which was hosted virtually, explored conversations around mitigating the awareness of women in the Nigerian political sphere, the current provisions of the Nigerian Constitution on gender diversity in politics, the Electoral Acts, and the urgent need for increased representation of women in elective and appointive positions of power. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has entrenched laws and guidelines on female participation in politics. However, implementing these laws and guidelines have been met with persistent resistance over the years. They outline critical observations stifling the participation of women in the Nigerian political sphere as follows. There is a perception created by an unspoken bias against women that politics is better suited to men. Certain cultural practices and norms unintentionally create prejudice against female leadership, and this creates the reality of the electoral value chain being inclined towards men. Electoral violence, funding, and unfavorable institutional structures stifle the participation and chances of women winning elections in Nigeria. Specific constitutional amendments need to be implemented to ensure political equality between men and women. Similarly, specific constitutional laws on female participation within political parties, which already exist, have not been enforced. Creating rewards and penalties for compliance or non-compliance with the documented inclusion targets by political parties is critical to achieving the objective of getting more women in the political sphere. Intentionally introducing gender inclusion targets across all tiers of government will be a significant step in progressing the goal of increased female participation in politics. Education, exposure, and a firm understanding of fundamental human rights are tools of advocacy that can dismantle the stereotypes that promote gender inequality. They also outline the various steps to increasing the affirmative actions to boost female participation in the political sphere. The proposed recommendations include a law that mandates gender inclusion targets across all tiers of government and of all spheres of political representation should be developed and passed. Seats should be reserved for women in the Senate and House of Representatives. The current presidential system of government should be reviewed and a parliamentary system of governance considered for adoption. Education and a basic understanding of fundamental human rights should be prioritized for women in undeserved communities, and an electoral offense commission should be created and empowered to bring perpetrators of electoral violence, specifically against women, people who misappropriate funds and use the institution of state to manipulate processes to fuel their personal interests. The Women in Politics webinar was chaired by Kemi Ogunyemi, CEO, Alpha Healthcare Initiative, and moderated by Honorable Nneka Ede, Member, House of Representatives, 2007 to 2019. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Women series. Do connect with us on our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram with the details showing on your screen. You could also send me an email at programs@poshareng.com. Till I come your way again next week, thank you for watching and bye for now.